And we're really excited that you're here for our information session this evening. Hopefully by the end of the evening you'll understand what PennPAC's all about, and you'll be proud and excited to be part of the great work that we're doing to help New York City nonprofits. I just wanted to introduce a couple of people before we get started, and then I might point out a few more people as we go along. This is Ann Turner, my partner in crime, who does pretty much everything in terms of running the projects, making sure we have selected the right clients, and put together the best scoped out projects that are appropriate for our teams of 6 alumni. With the reddish hair is Lauren Lorberbaum, who is also working on our management team helping out behind the scenes. I think as you can see from the number of people in the room, the larger we get, it takes a little bit more management just to sort of manage the infrastructure and figure out who's appropriate for which project team, and do a good job of matching the right professional skills and background with the right nonprofits. So we have a whole slew of people who work on having one-on-one phone conversations with each person and trying to do the best job of fitting them on the right project teams. So I think we'll just take about 20 or 30 minutes to go through what PennPAC is all about, and then we'll open the floor to questions. If there's something that you really don't know, just feel free to ask during the presentation. So thank you for coming, and hopefully we could tell you a lot about PennPAC tonight. So first of all, I'll focus on our tagline. It's harnessing Penn pride to help nonprofits thrive, and I think that's really what we're trying to do, is leverage the intellectual capital that Penn alumni of all types have, and utilize that for a positive purpose and help nonprofits do what they're doing better. Oftentimes nonprofits are strapped in a variety of ways. Usually they just don't have the manpower, and I think that's where I thought, wow, Penn alumni could really do something other than their jobs and contribute to the nonprofit sector in a really valuable and meaningful way, both for the nonprofits and I think for each of you. We've heard time and time again from our volunteers how they want to continue to be engaged with the nonprofit that they've interacted with, how much of a difference they've made, and we'll go through the presentation. You'll see some of our stats in terms of what difference we do make. So this is sort of the structure for what we're going to talk about tonight. We'll give a little intro of what PennPAC is all about and the background and history, and then go through some samples of how it all works, and go through the specifics of how each of you can get involved this spring and going forward. So what is PennPAC? We are a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits. So I guess in nonprofit speak, we would be considered a technical service provider, not a direct service provider. We're not the ones in Bed-Stuy that try to provide more food to people who need it, but we're the ones who help that organization figure out how to get more money so that they can buy more food for their constituents. So I guess we're the secret weapon for the nonprofits that we work with. As I alluded to earlier, our mission is to harness the intellectual talents and professional skills of Penn alumni in a meaningful and socially impactful way. And we do this, I think as you all probably know, and that's why you came here tonight, by providing short-term consulting advice to nonprofits. What the nonprofits need from us, I think our biggest asset really is that we're an outsider, and we could oftentimes go to the marketplace that they reside in and ask their competitors questions, do research about others in the marketplace, learn about their field, and really just have an outside set of eyes that they listen to. One of our clients, I remember saying, everyone was telling me that we should change our names, but somehow when you guys came in here and had a whole PowerPoint presentation with all these compelling reasons to change it, that's what really finally made us change our name and look at ourselves otherwise. So I feel like sometimes we're just like that outside person. Sometimes they don't have the skill set, they don't have the bandwidth in their organization. Oftentimes they just don't have the time. These are, a lot of the groups that we work with are smaller nonprofits, not too small because I think those wouldn't be able to handle a big strategic assistance project, but in the budget of $500,000 to maybe $5 million, and could really just use the skills that we and time that we put into the project. So at this point, we've been around 3.5 years. We started in the fall of 2011, and we've helped 30 nonprofits, 22 of them here in New York, and 8 also at PennPAC Philadelphia. Last year, we spent over 2,500 hours between all of our project teams helping nonprofits thrive. So I really feel like what we have in this room today is such an amazing asset that we could provide and really make an impact on New York City and the services provided in such a variety of ways. If you priced out the value of what we're providing, to date we've provided well over $1 million. And as of now, we're a completely volunteer-run organization, so everybody who's involved in the organization does so and is rewarded in other ways. Okay, Sigali, where are you? There you are, up there, at last year's Impact event. Okay. So I think we went through this, and the one other thing I wanted to add here is that in terms of our organizational status, we are a separate 501c3, which means we're our own entity. We're incorporated in the state of New York as PennPAC Incorporated now. And although we get lots of lists of alumni from Penn, NYC, and are able to advertise through the Penn alumni channels, we're not like a subset of the university. I think they're supportive and like what we do, but we're a separate entity. But we do work, as I just said, with Penn NYC, which is the alumni regional club here in New York, and with various offices at the university. And we have an executive board that manages what we do, and there are 12 of us on that board. And everybody's name is listed here. It's a variety of people from all different backgrounds. Some are Wharton alums, some are engineering, some are alumni of graduate programs at Penn, some are undergraduate alumni. I'm an undergraduate alum from the class of Stephanie is our director of PennPAC Philly. So if you have friends in Philadelphia that are interested in...
You're talking about 1908?
Yes, Stephanie graduated in 1808 actually. She's part of the old guard. So that's our Philly operation. And I really think, as you could tell by the turnout here in this room, that there's really so much opportunity for us to make a difference. I feel like we haven't done such a big job of marketing our services to alumni. Just a couple of emails, and we get a room full of interested people such as you. So there's a lot more opportunity for us to make the organization bigger, to make more of a difference here in New York, potentially expand to other cities if there's an interest. But one of the reasons I started it is because I just feel like there are so many Penn alumni in New York, and there's just so there's so many good ways that we could leverage that community here. So that's one way that we could grow, is grow here in New York. We could also grow geographically, and then we also have a couple other opportunities aside from our main project teams to grow by doing other kinds of projects. Okay. So basically what we do is we solicit nonprofits to apply to PennPAC, to approach us with a specific project that they want us to help with, and then we meet with them and work through the project scope with them. The intent is, and I'll go through this in more detail, each project team has 6 alumni on it, and it's really, we want to put together a project scope that's appropriate for 6 people who also have many other commitments in their life and want to put in just a couple hours a week over the course of 8 to 10 weeks into the project. So I think one of the most important aspects of what we do, and this is where Ann and her team work very carefully, is to put together an appropriate scope that's not too much work, too little work, something that wouldn't warrant people who have expertise in a certain topic. I don't think that's our goal here. It's good to have maybe a finance person or a marketing person on the project team if that's what it warrants, but really, a nice smart person with an outside perspective is really all that you need to be on a project team. The nonprofits, we have several criteria. I think I said before, it can't be something that's too small, that couldn't handle all the work involved with interacting with us over the course of several weeks. And then we also don't want the project to be shelved at the end of the 8 weeks with the intent of being implemented, but unfortunately not the ability. So we're pretty careful about selecting nonprofits that do have that bandwidth that can implement the recommendations that our team put forward. So this spring we're going to have what we also had last fall. We had 4 project teams that we're working with. We actually in the last couple of days just met with all of those nonprofits. January is our vetting season where we meet potential nonprofits whose project scopes we were interested in from their applications, and we had some really good meetings with these organizations that we want to move forward with. So January sort of nonprofit matching time, and then between now and the middle of February we try and figure out who are the right alumni to put on the project teams, and then by early March the projects will start. So the project term for the spring is early March through mid-May, and probably like the last week in February will be when you find out who's on your project team, and then you'll schedule a meeting for the first or second week in March. I think our spring schedule is a tiny bit more flexible than the fall. The fall, I feel like we're always just like working up to the deadline of we want to be done by a couple weeks before Christmas so people have time to enjoy the holiday season parties and sort of like winding down at the end of the year. So I feel like we're like trying really hard in the fall to start our projects as close to October 1st as we can. So those are finished by say December 8th, 10th, something like that. And then the spring projects are March through the middle of May. If you're on a project team, you can expect to put in about between 3 and 5 hours a week. I just last night was going through the survey from the fall project participants, and again, that's pretty much the amount of time they traditionally spend on their project. About one of those hours is spent on a group call. So once a week, the project team, and I'll go through this again in a minute or two, has a team call just to check in, see what everyone has accomplished as far as their specific to-dos from the previous week, and then a couple of other hours are spent by each individual working on their specific assignment, if you will. And our project teams are really made up, as you can see around this room, of a diversity of alumni from all the different schools within Penn, people in different professions, different stages of their careers. I think that actually that's one thing that makes PennPAC special and constantly getting such high marks from our clients is that the diverse nature of the project team. We do a really good job, I think, of putting together a diverse group on the project team, and I think it's really neat when you're trying to figure out what the recommendations are, and you have, someone thinking like a lawyer in the room, and someone else thinking like a marketing person, an engineering person. You just get like a really robust conversation, different perspectives, and our clients have really been really wowed, honestly, by what we come up with. So the basics are 4 project teams, 6 people per team. You'll put in a couple of hours a week on that project. We're pretty strict in terms of the amount of time you could be away if you're on that project team. So if you have any travel plans where you're going off on a work trip for 2 weeks or something like that over the course of those 8 weeks, we would ask that you would wait till fall to be on a project team, just because it's a tight time frame, and I think that's some of the beauty of it is you get in, you do your work, you get out, the project's over, but there's not that much extra meat in the time frame for people to take time away from the project. So in terms of the 6-person project team, it's made up of a team leader, a deputy team leader, and 4 other volunteers. So I said we've been doing this for 3.5 years. So like we've been like we're like this will be our 8th round that we're doing right now. And I feel like over time we've spent, this is what our executive board talks about until late into the night. Oftentimes we really like focus on the model and what works, and are always trying to perfect it. And for the last, I'd say, I don't know, 5 rounds or so, we have had the team lead and the deputy team lead model. The team leader spends probably a little bit more time, not probably, definitely spends a little bit more time on the project than the other people on the team. That's the person that's liaisoning directly with the client over the project term. And you'll have that weekly team call, and then all of the follow-up questions you might have for the client that goes through the team leader. The team leader also schedules all of the calls and meetings. The deputy team leader is a close number 2 to the team leader, and the notion is if there's ever a reason why the team leader can't participate in one of the meetings or calls or whatever, the deputy team leader picks up that responsibility. We also find that it's good so the team leader doesn't feel like if there's some strategic questions, they don't feel alone in terms of trying to figure out what to do. So it's like an interesting balance because there's like 2 leaders and 4 other team members, but usually it works out really nicely that it's just basically those are the people that have like the official role as a larger leadership role. So there's not too many cooks. Well, I don't know what the expression is, but there's enough leadership and there's enough working on the project team. I think that also works nicely in terms of like balancing out people's skill sets. They might feel more comfortable in a certain role, or maybe it's your first project, and even though you have tons of leadership experience in your life, you just kind of want to check out what PennPAC's all about and not necessarily step up as in a leadership role from the get-go. So in addition to the 6 people on the project team, there's also a project liaison for each project team. That's the person who comes with us to the vetting meetings and meets the nonprofit from the first meeting, puts together the scope document, and really serves as the word is as a liaison between PennPAC and the project team and the client over the course of the project. So it's sort of that outside impartial party. So after your kickoff meeting with the client, the liaison will call the client and say, how did everything go? And I don't know why this is, but sometimes the client is like reluctant to say something to the team. Oh, they were so nice, they put in so much time, but I'm wondering if we could tweak this a little bit or do this. So we find it useful to have that liaison. They're an experienced PennPACer, so they sometimes just have good advice in terms of how to push back on a client when scope creep comes in, how to cut off a project when they cancel the final meeting and it's now days before the end of our time frame. So I think they're useful in many ways, but the first way that they're useful, come on in. There's actually a couple seats up here if you wanna sit down. They're just useful to provide an extra set of eyes and ears on the project, and if problems arise, they're the ones who help the team through it. So here's an example. Here's an example of a project team that we had last year. It was a branding project. So we had 6 people, a really diverse background. I don't know if you could all see this because the red doesn't actually look that great on the blue here. But we had somebody who, in their real life, was a branding director who served as the team leader. We had somebody who was an investment banker, so the Wharton type. Then we had an engineering type on the project team. Then we had somebody who is a scientist at Pfizer. And then we had a lawyer, and we had, I guess from the old school, M&T. I guess it's called, I don't know, what is it? Some whatever, engineering and Wharton. What is it? It's some donor's name. What? Oh, it's still M&T. Okay, I thought it was called something else. So as you can see, like really just like a diverse group of people, and they got together, and that's the project team.
Jackie, I just want to interject here for a minute. That team is a great representation of different sets of Penn grads coming together from different programs, but it actually didn't reflect the variation that we often have in our project teams in terms of like some of the years people graduated. So, you know, for a number of us in the room who have more experience in that, I mean, we often have a much more mix of people. So that's not entirely representative, but we're kind of focusing on the backgrounds that people are coming from there.
Right, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, so again, I don't need to belabor it, I think. I think this is like the main thing that I haven't touched upon yet, and that's the project term. So as I said, like January, we're vetting the nonprofits, we're recruiting new volunteers, that's what we're here for here tonight, and then we're going to get everyone into the project teams. That happens by the middle to late February, and then the projects launch. So the first thing that happens is the team leader gets in touch with the other members of the project team. Everyone wants to meet each other and just sort of understand what the project is. You'll look at the application, you'll look at the engagement letter and the project scope that's been put together about the project, and then you'll schedule a kickoff meeting with the nonprofit. So sometimes before the kickoff meeting, the project team will meet in person without the client just to sort of think through like what they might want to talk through with the client. And sometimes the kickoff meeting is the first time the project team meets each other in person. Sometimes they meet like half an hour before that meeting. This way it's not 2 different days that you have to physically meet with the project team. It's just in the interest of time. Sometimes it just works better. And so that kickoff meeting will be in the beginning of March. You'll, after that meeting, each person on the project team will get a specific role on the project, and then you'll have those weekly calls through the midterm review meeting, sort of like a midway point, check in with the client. So that's the second meeting with the client is the midterm review meeting, and then about 4 or 5 weeks later, you have your final presentation. So the PennPAC model is really structured for people who have lots of commitments in their lives and don't necessarily want to physically meet a million times with their project team. We find that working over the phone, some projects do Google Hangout, whatever, you'll see what works for your project team, but to interact usually in a more virtual way. It really depends on the project team. Some project teams want to meet before the final presentation and do like a run-through. Other project teams don't want to do that. So it really depends on the personalities on your team. But we haven't had I feel like it's all worked out nicely. We haven't had cases where people are like, oh my God, I can't believe my project team wants to meet again and again. It really, although it is a 3 to 5 hour commitment, I think a lot of it is very flexible. You do your share of the work when it's convenient for you. You share that work with your team, however your team decides. Maybe you're like sharing documents in Dropbox or Google Docs, or via email. We have all kinds of technology these days. So I live out in the suburbs. I feel like sometimes we have these calls Sunday nights at 8 or 9 o'clock. I'm more than happy to do it sort of when it's quiet in my house, and that'd be the last time I would want to be schlepping into the city, but like we could have a very productive, focused conversation at that time of the week with everybody. So you'll see what works with your project team. Now, you're all looking around the room thinking, wow, there's a lot of people in the room, and I know we're going to have 6 people on a project team times 4 projects. You've all calculated that and figured out that there are more than 24 people in the room. Okay, so that, don't worry about that, because I think there are some people in the room who are interested in PennPAC, but perhaps not ready to jump on a project right now. There are some people in the room who do want to, but realize, March to May might not be the best time for them. Maybe like April is busy season in their office, and it would really not be the time to engage in their first project. So there are a couple other ways for you to get involved. I'm going to go through those in a minute. But the number of people who are actually available to work on the spring term is less than the number of people in this room. And if it's not, we'll get you on a project as soon as we can. I think that's some of the purpose of having the information session, is so people learn about it, and then over time we'll be able to get you on a project team. So if you want to be on a team this spring and we don't get you on one, please be patient with us. I wish we could do more projects. We just don't have the bandwidth right now in our small management team of volunteers to really have more than 4 projects per term. I think another limiting factor at this point is we're pretty particular, especially with a team lead on the project, to make sure that person has the skill set to be an effective leader, make sure that the project team is a democracy, so that everyone feels like their voice is being heard, not that they're like staffed necessarily by the team leader. I think we want everyone to contribute in a way that they feel very positive about. And there just aren't as many people who have 5-6 hours a week to contribute to PennPAC. And are raising their hand to be team leads. So I think we don't want to grow faster than we should. We don't want to put people in team leader roles who aren't necessarily familiar with the organization. So I think we've been successful in sort of taking it slow and steady. We promise we'll get you as engaged as we can, as quickly as we can. And I'm really excited to see the room so filled tonight. So thank you coming, and we'll continue with some of the other options. This is the timetable. I think I basically went through this a little bit where basically what you could get out of this slide is apply now. This is when we're recruiting the volunteers, and then the spring projects are going to run from March is the launch, and then the midpoint is April, and then they conclude in May. If we're talking about the fall projects, August and September is when we're matching the volunteers onto the project teams. Judging from the number of people in the room, we're not going to have another information session. So I think once you have your one-on-one call with one of our volunteer relations team in the next couple of weeks, so we get a better sense of what you're interested in. If you're not on the spring project team, or if you choose to be on the fall teams, starting in August, we'll announce what the projects are going to be in the fall, and we'll start putting those project teams together. They're going to launch as early in October as we can get that to happen, and then the midterm meeting is November, and those conclude, as I had said earlier, maybe December 8th or 10th or something like that, so that we could get everybody not focused on volunteer work when it's holiday shopping season and what have you. This is a sampling of our nonprofit clients. It doesn't have some of our latest clients in it. All of our clients are on the PennPAC website, pennpac.org. But really, we have had a pretty diverse group of nonprofits. As I had said earlier, our sweet spot is like a $500,000 budget to a few $1 million. Not too many, like 10 million plus organizations, because I think they look for other resources. But we have had a really nice mix of arts and culture organizations, of lots of school and after-school programs for inner-city kids, types of programs. We've done lots of those, but I find that they're all different. All these organizations have a slightly different angle on that, and it's been interesting to interact with each organization. Some of these here are Philly, the majority of which are New York based. Speaking of New York, in terms of this being New York City, our clients are in all 5 boroughs, although I don't think we've had anybody yet, an organization from Staten Island. So we really do work with a diverse group, but we try and have the client meetings here pretty much in Midtown, in Manhattan, because I think it's more convenient by and large for the volunteers. So you might have one meeting at the client site. I'm trying to think of our prospective clients for this term, and I'm not thinking of anyone that's like super far, inconveniently located. Am I not?
Well, we've got Saya and Queens, so that
That's
would be
true.
at a central location. Yeah, I mean, a couple of them are uptown, so we may meet uptown, or if the team needs to, we'll get space in Midtown.
Right.
So no outer boroughs.
What we generally do when a client is a little bit further away is we assess how important it is for you guys to see the project in its home. So depending on what they do, sometimes it is important to see like how it's set up, who the clients are, and then we ask for you to like go there maybe for one meeting. But once that takes place, everything else will be much more centrally located. If there's no reason to go to their location, or it's like super far off, we've had a couple clients, in Riverdale and in the South Bronx. Those meetings we try and bring into Midtown just because it's sometimes harder to get to on public transportation. Okay, I'll go through a couple projects and then we'll talk about our projects for this spring, and then I'll give you some other options of how to get involved, and then we will wrap up. So I'm going to talk about 3 completely different projects. The first one was with a client called The Lamp. If you check out the video on our website homepage, the executive director from The Lamp, DC Vito, is featured in that video. They're an organization that teaches middle school and high school kids about using the media to their advantage. So it's focused on kids in underserved areas learning to utilize the media in a very positive way. So they came to us and said, we're really passionate about what we do. We have no idea how to cost out the product that we sell. We have no idea if that's the right amount. We came up with it. This is what we're charging. So we did a whole financial assessment of it, realized they were undercharging. We're able to get them to change the whole pricing structure, and we're able to increase the revenues in the organization by 34% due to our engagement. With that extra money, they were able to hire 1 more person on their staff and also touch another 700 kids in that first year after the engagement. So it's like such a typical project for us. They just need an outsider to come in, give them a little bit of guidance. You know, they didn't know the first thing about how to use spreadsheets. Now they use the models that we've developed and are constantly running different numbers through them, trying to figure things out. And we've really made a difference in that organization. The second one I want to talk about is Renaissance Youth Center. In the beginning of us working with Renaissance, it was called Renaissance EMS, Education, Music, and Sports. They came to us and said, we're 2 guys running this organization. One's a musician, one's an athlete, and they were so passionate and such beautiful father figures to the kids in their program, but didn't know the first thing about how to run a growing organization. We did a whole SWOT analysis for them, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, made a bunch of suggestions, and what came out of that was, number 1, they changed the name of the organization to something they thought was more appropriate for what they were doing. Renaissance EMS, people thought was too much related to the ambulance EMS and didn't really describe what they were doing. And they also really changed their management team. They had these 2 guys sort of doing everything and a couple other people in the office at a much lower level, and nothing was particularly organized. They weren't utilizing the parents of the kids in the program as volunteers. They changed all that around, and then fast forward 12 months, the name was changed. They hired a couple more people, and they tripled the number of kids that they were serving. They came to us for a second engagement, and I remember him telling me the number of schools, and I was like, wait a second, I thought you guys were in whatever the number was, and he's like, no, we totally changed the structure of our organization because of what you said, and now we have all these other kids that we're working with. So I think it's really rewarding for you guys to be on these project teams and see what a difference a few hours of your time each week can really help. And then the third project, I'll talk about that one for shorter because I feel like I'm talking for way too long, is Riverdale Neighborhood House. That was a much more classic project where they were a very well-established nonprofit that does a variety of services for the Riverdale Bronx community, and they really just needed advice on redoing their website. They have a bunch of programs, a bunch of sign-ups, and it was just sort of it grew and grew and grew and grew, and it wasn't organized, and we helped them strategize that. So from the client side, we've had a lot of positive feedback. I think all of our projects so far have been successful. All of our clients have been happy. And I think that's really because everyone on the project team takes it seriously, really enjoys the project work, I think really enjoys interacting with the other alumni on their project team. I hope that what we've created is not too overwhelming in terms of a time commitment, the short 8-week time frame, a couple hours a week, and I think we've just really been able to be impactful and harness what we have and our assets to help nonprofits do a really good job. I am going to do 2 things right now. I'm gonna introduce Jeanette Chang, who's standing in the way back. She is our volunteer relations vice chair. And as much as Anne does to get the projects going together, Jeanette works on the volunteer side. So she's the one that, between her and her team of a few volunteers, will be talking with each of you one-on-one in the next couple of weeks. Perhaps some of you already spoke to Lauren in the last couple of weeks. We're trying to stay on top of the applications as they come in. Jeanette's going to introduce herself in a second, and I know that she's going to say that our applications are due this Sunday, so hopefully after tonight you'll put in an application, and even if you aren't able to participate this spring, just fill it out so we can get you into our system and sort of get you interviewed, as we call it, and acclimated. So Jeanette, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about the volunteer side.
As Jackie said, my name is Jeanette. I've been with PennPAC since the beginning. I have the volunteer relations team, so that involves talking to you guys both before, during, and after projects to make sure that we find the best place for you to make sure that you're on a project where you feel like you can add the most value and also get the most out of it in return. So if there's any questions that you have about the volunteer process or what areas you can be involved in, whether it's one of these spring projects or a general project, definitely let me know.
All right, and now I'm going to hand it over to Anne, who's going to go through the 4 projects that we are intending to work with this spring. It's still a little bit early. These are the 4 nonprofits that we've selected. We've met with all of them. We think that we're a go on all of these projects. On a rare occasion, something comes up and we might have to make a change, but as of now, these are the 4 that we think we're going ahead with.
Do you have the slides on?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a go forward. And I did them in alphabetical order, so
This has been a really exciting week for us. Somehow we have just barely managed to fit meetings with all 4 of the clients that we intend to move forward and do projects with in this week, including a couple today. So we're really excited about the clients that we've met with. I think they're excited to work with us. We've got 4 clients in totally different spaces. They're reputable names in their areas, and they're interesting projects for PennPAC people to get involved in. So I'm just going to briefly touch on them. We've got somebody in the art space, the Bloomingdale School of Music. So they're a very well regarded provider of music to anyone.
I'm sorry, can I just ask you a quick question? How do you actually go about identifying clients? Do you reach out? Are you looking
We
for
feel
them,
great
or
about
they-
it. I mean, we ask them for their permission to mention their name. That's part of something that, we agree upon up front. And, we vet them. We want to make sure they're organizations that our volunteers would want to work with. And
do you mean more like how do we find the nonprofits though?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No problem. I'm just
That's another thing that Anne's in charge of, is going out there and we have a bunch of listservs that we send to of nonprofits. So we have a good partnership with the Mayor's Office of Service. They have a group and they'll push that out in a variety of ways. We have other nonprofit groups that send it out. One thing that we're working harder on in the last couple of months, and we will be again going forward, is identifying pockets of nonprofits. So not just like all the nonprofits through the nonprofit coordinating committee, but maybe like different arts councils that have, several, 3 dozen or so arts organizations. We also, through the email that you all received from Penn NYC inviting you to this session tonight, some people, some other Penn alumni are like, oh wait, I'm on the board of a nonprofit or involved with a nonprofit, and sometimes it comes that way, and sometimes it comes through past clients referring.
Good question. That's always that's the initial step, right? Is to find strong clients that we like to work with. So the first one is the Bloomingdale School of Music. They have an interesting request. They have an underutilized earned services or earned income type of product that they have developed. I think it's unique, but because it's not part of their core services, it's been kind of neglected. Their revenue stream has been diminishing. So they would like us to have a team of people to do an analysis of that product in the market and help us develop a plan for improving the whole positioning and pricing for that. They also had an interesting request that, out of the 6 people on the team, they would love for 1 or 2 of them to have a knowledge of music and music theory. So, not in terms of your day job or anything, but we're hopeful. We'd love to find volunteer or two that might have some knowledge of that in their background, something you do on the side. So please let us know. Be sure and let Jeanette know if you have that and if you're interested in this product, in this project.
When you fill out the applications, by the way, these are listed on the application, so you can also, put somewhere that you have the music experience, because sometimes it doesn't show, like you work at JP Morgan, but we don't know that you were a music major at Penn necessarily.
What are these applications?
We're going to go through it at the end. It's on the website, and there's a click through from the homepage that says apply now for a spot.
So then another entirely different type of organization, we've got the Carter Burton Center for Aging. They're a pretty well-known group that has been growing through some different types of acquisition, but they provide a variety of services to seniors that are ages 60 and up. So they would like us to help them with rebranding and messaging, just improving the cohesiveness of their branding and the messaging as they've expanded their services and kind of get everybody on the same page. So it's just a nice kind of bread and butter marketing type of project. Then we have the Dave Nee Foundation, which is kind of unique. It was actually founded by a Fordham Law student named Dave Nee who committed suicide, and it has been founded on the mission of, from a mental health perspective, of providing education and helping with suicide prevention and preventing depression. But they also have a pretty specific focus on law school students and legal professionals, which surprisingly actually have a pretty significantly higher incidence of rates of depression and suicide. So that's their specific mission. And they would like us to help with pricing structure for taking one of the programs that they currently deliver that they think could be converted to fee for service. So it's kind of an analysis to look at the marketplace and the positioning for that product. And then finally, SAYA, or the South Asian Youth Action. There's a lot of different nonprofits in New York that do youth development and college access programs for inner city kids. This is actually the only one in the country that is focused on South Asian youth. And there's a lot in New York. There are a lot. They're underprivileged kids. This organization is in Queens, in the heart of it. And it's an organization that's growing and has an exciting mission. And because of their growth, and the programmatic growth has tended to grow, but some of the administrative strength behind their marketing materials, their messaging, their branding hasn't been able to keep pace. So we are going to help them with a branding and messaging strategy. I want to make just a couple other remarks in terms of generally working on programs and stuff. Jackie's spoken a lot about how PennPAC is great for people in their busy lives, and it's like a nice small thing you can have on the side. I think that's true for all of our volunteer consulting roles as well as our leadership roles. But I do just want to put on a bad cop hat for 1 second and just point out that we really rely on our deputy team leaders and our team leaders, and those require just a little bit more of a time commitment. You also will reap in spades the rewards of it, but those are more like 5 hours or possibly like 5 to 7 hours-ish a week. To really steer the ship. And the reward you get from that is the same as you're getting as a volunteer consultant, just enhanced a little bit. That I think the greatest reward of being a consultant on our projects is you're in the room with the executive director, their team, often a board member. You get a real feel with what are some significant strategic issues that they're dealing with, what's keeping the executive director up at night, that kind of thing. So I would like to make a little plug for the leadership roles. And also, while we typically try and get our team leader roles to be filled from previous PennPAC volunteers who understand how we operate and so forth, the deputy team leader is somebody that, somebody with just kind of management and leadership experience from your regular day job. It doesn't have to be that significant amount of experience. We can certainly staff you on your first PennPAC role as a deputy team leader. So, we have so many people out tonight. That's just a little chance if you're interested in that role. It's always a better shot at the project you might be most interested in. So I just want to make a plug for that. And I guess finally, just so I don't overlook it, we are so appreciative to have this wonderful space tonight to accommodate all of you. So I wanted to say thank you to Dwayne Morris and Michael Groman, a friend and attorney of mine who are hosting us tonight. So, yes.
So I was curious as to how many nonprofits requested your services, and then what criteria you used to evaluate the 4 that you chose.
Sure. Well, in any given round, could be maybe up to 10 applications. We're also looking for 4. In addition to the kind of minimum thresholds that we look for, such as, what their annual revenues are, or how many FTEs they've got in their office, making sure they're not religiously affiliated, those kind of things. We look at the projects. We want to make sure that they're interesting, challenging projects. I mean, there's some things we don't do. We don't want to do very development-oriented, making the ask kind of things, nothing that's kind of too tedious. So we try to make sure it's high level, strategic. We try and pick a mix of clients from a range of backgrounds. We have industries that appeal to different people, and then a mix of functional tasks in terms of, not all just marketing, not all quantitative analysis. Just a nice portfolio of a mix each time around.
All right. I'm just going to go through a couple of the other options, and then we will conclude. This always takes me longer than I think it is, so bear with me. We're almost done. So those are the four options for the spring. Again, it was Bloomingdale Music School. We had Carter Burden was the Senior Center. Then we had the Dave Nee Foundation was the mental health, depression, and suicide focused with law students and lawyers. And then the final one is the SAYA, South Asian Youth Action Organization. So each totally different organizations and projects. So as Anne was talking about, the liaisons we already have chosen and engaged for the project teams. So each team needs a team leader. I think that's exactly right for the deputy team leader, especially for people who are looking to gain leadership experience in a role other than their day job. It's a nice fit. And then for volunteer consultants. If you're not on a project team, or even if you are, next month we're going to be having our impact event, which is a one-night high-impact event. So if you're feeling overwhelmed with the 8 to 10 week project term, this is a one-night opportunity to make a big impact on a nonprofit. So I think we try and separate ourselves from other organizations and come up with some pretty meaty types of opportunities. So we don't want to do things that you could do with other organizations, paint walls and fix up spaces or that kind of stuff. The opportunity that we have in February is to work with the Robert Louis Stevenson School, which is on the Upper West Side. It's a school that helps kids who are otherwise bright but have some social and emotional challenges, which warrant them choosing to be in a different school. And the school, one of the administrators of the school is a Penn alum and asked us if we would help brainstorm with him and a couple of the top administrators there on how they could expand their image and the knowledge of their school in the New York City community. So we're going to have a brainstorming session with them on the evening of February 10th. It's before our spring projects start, so you could definitely do both. You could get your feet wet with this. It's up to you what you're interested in doing. And the notion is for us that night to break out into 3 groups and work with the 3 administrators on various related topics with expansion. We have these impact events once or twice a year, and the notion really is you don't have time for the full project, or you want to do something in addition. It's a one night sort of easy way of getting involved and helping out. We've done a variety of different kinds of activities. We've done deep dives like this before. Once we worked with actually the constituents of one of our clients at the time to do some mentoring and some mock college interviews. There's all kinds of different things that we do. This upcoming one is with the Robert Louis Stevenson School. There's going to be an invitation that's going out tomorrow that you should all get. If for whatever reason you don't, it's because you just sent in your information the last day or two, and that information is also on our website. So feel free to click through and sign up for that. We'd love to see you at Impact. So behind the scenes, as you could see from what Jeanette does, what Lauren does, what Anne does, what I do, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and there's also opportunities for you all to get involved in a variety of internal project teams with PennPAC. And where's Chloe? Oh, right here in front. Chloe is also helping us out behind the scenes, doing some social media help this spring. I think one thing we haven't really focused on that much is having a strong social media presence. promoting what we're doing, sort of showcasing, utilizing Facebook and LinkedIn about all the cool projects that we've worked on and the organization. So Chloe's going to help us sort of make that come out a little bit stronger. I encourage all of you to like us on Facebook, follow what's going on with the group, post about what you're doing with a client, say, you know, just join this great project with PennPAC. I think it just will improve the general awareness of PennPAC in the New York City area. Hopefully that means more applications from nonprofits and just more people knowing about it in general. There are a variety of roles for you to take on if you're not on a project team with an external client, as we call them. And what we've had in the past, I don't want to belabor this, I know it's getting late, is we've had teams of Penn alumni working on pretty much everything that you see that is PennPAC. We put together marketing project team, the logo, the tagline. We had a project team create our website. We had a project team create our video. We had a project team of lawyers and finance people help apply and get us our 501c3 status. So it's all really done in a very team-oriented, volunteer fashion. So there's all kinds of ways that you can participate. One big project that Lauren's working on right now is putting together a better database for our volunteer data and organizing that in a more professional fashion. I feel like as we've grown, we've sort of outgrown the grassroots way that we had been doing it, and we're sort of moving on to the next phase. So on the applications, you'll also see a couple of ways that you can get involved this spring with some of our internal project teams. So a couple of little ways that you can get involved besides the project teams. Number one, we're going to have an event planning team. We're going to have our first ever sort of fundraiser, friend-raiser event in April. I think we are looking to raise a little bit of money with the goal of taking care of some of our administrative expenses and being able to sort of bring us to the next phase where we could just help more nonprofits. So that's going to be somewhat of a typical event planning committee putting together a fun, hopefully, fundraising event. The second opportunity is something that could even start pretty quickly. We're doing this for the first time. It's a mini project, so shorter time frame, smaller group of people. It's a nonprofit that needs our help putting together a software selection and customization effort, and we really just need one or two people to help with that, to help them sort of who has some tech background. It'll be 3 hours a week-ish for 6 to 8 weeks, so slightly shorter than our usual projects, and the difference is it's not like a whole big team project. It's really just for one or two people, so less coordination, sort of like a quick get in and get out. If you have tech experience and want to help with that, definitely indicate that on the application, or you can also email Anne directly. Her email is Anne, ANNE, @pennpac.org. This is also all on the website. So
Or let me know tonight. So.
Also an option. And the last thing is we're always looking for a little bit of graphic design assistance. Maybe that would be like helping us put together the invitation for the event planning, redoing our homepage a little bit, just not an overwhelming amount, but just sort of like a very project-oriented graphic design help. So I think in addition to the 4 projects and the impact event for February 10th, these are the other ways that you could get involved this spring. You'll interact with the volunteer relations team who's going to be interviewing over the phone. That's a role that you might have, but I think that'll be more for when you have more handle on what PennPAC does. So that's an option for down the road. And another option is if you're not on a project team, I think a really good option actually is to participate on Anne's nonprofit relations team. I don't even know where that information is right now, but basically that's the group that it's a very small time commitment. There's one call and then there's one meeting. So the one call you'll learn about recruiting the nonprofits, and then in that one meeting you will have reviewed the applications of the nonprofits who are interested in fall, and that meeting will be in May or June. and you will be deciding and prioritizing which organizations we work with for fall. So that's one way. If we can't get you on a project team, especially, we would love your help, and it's a way to just sort of understand how we think and help us make the decisions about our next round of clients. So I think that's pretty much all the information, which is good because we've been going on and on and on. So basically, you get it by now. 6 people on our project team, 4 projects. They're listed out also on that application that you can link to from our homepage. Please come to the Impact event next month. And then the event planning team, the mini project, and the graphic design options are sort of other options for getting involved with PennPAC. If you go to our homepage, we have the applications. There's also a link if you go to the volunteer section on the website. There's a link to it. It's a Google Doc. And you could fill that out probably within 10 minutes or so. So those are due on Sunday, just so we can get those in and get the project teams going. We have the specific information, so we don't need to do that. And everybody please like us on Facebook. And we want to open it up to questions now, but thank you for coming. We appreciate your interest and your support and for sticking with us through the presentation.
There's also, some food, snacks in the back if anybody wants a snack, and we're happy to answer any questions personally as well.
The snacks and everything, the space is all thanks to Dwaymar. So again, we send our thanks to them. Questions? Or feel free to come up to us individually afterwards as well.